Prime Minister, welcome to the Newscast studio.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. We'll talk loads about what you've been up to and some of the ups and downs in the last 100 days. But first, I just wanted to give newscasters an insight into what it is actually like being a Prime Minister, because not many people get to do that job. How do you sort of convey what it's like?
It's a real privilege because you get the chance to take decisions that make a big difference to people's lives. And that is hugely a privilege. It's what I came into politics to do. For me, it's been much tougher than anything I've done before, but much better. I came into politics relatively late in life, having spent a lot of time as a lawyer, and that was slightly unusual because a lot of people come in earlier than me. I came in because I decided in my own mind that I wanted to go to politics. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to improve the country, improve people's lives. And then I got stuck in opposition for 9 long years, where however much you convince yourself in opposition that you're making a material difference.
Oh, yeah, because
you're not really. So this coming into power, becoming Prime Minister, having now 100 days has been, really why I came into politics. This is what I wanted to do, and I'm really pleased at long last, after a long, long wait, to be able to make the decisions that are going to make a big difference to people's lives.
It's interesting when you said stuck in opposition. Did you think that maybe you would have been in government a bit sooner? Was that the plan?
Oh, look, I hoped so. I mean, I went into the 2015 election thinking we might win it. As you do, elections are funny old things. You get yourself in a complete mindset of thinking we're going to win it this time. But, we made the mistake, frankly, that having lost in 2010, we didn't ask ourselves enough searching questions about why we lost. So we went on and lost 4 more times before we finally asked ourselves the question, could it be us? Changed the party, but still we were stuck in opposition. And I found that really frustrating. I'll be totally open with you. Really frustrating. The least productive years of my entire career were the 9 years in opposition.
You've done a good few high-profile public jobs, Director of Public Prosecutions, Leader of the Opposition. Having become Prime Minister, how much more of your sort of previous normal life has been squeezed out by the nature of the job you're now doing?
Oh, quite a lot. It's because you are necessarily more constrained. The security around me and the family is of a completely different order.
Is that hard? Is that difficult to adjust to?
Yeah, it is, because I'm someone who really likes to sort of maintain strong contact with friends, family, is what I'd call the life I was living. That is much harder. And of course, we're living in a flat in Downing Street above the shop. And that's not very normal. You're living in a flat in Downing Street. Everybody wants to come and see you, has to come through an armed guard. This is odd. And
it might be Vladimir Zelensky one day.
It might be, but it also might be one of my old mates that I want to see. And for our kids, it's also quite impactful. My little girl's 13, my boy's 16. And so for them to live in that environment is odd for them as well, which is why we've sort of doubled down on protecting them, not using photos, not putting their names out there. But it's straight, if they want to have a friend over, that friend's got to come through security. It takes a bit of getting used to.
So they have to get security cleared. Give us your passport, all the countries you've been to in the last 10 years.
Well, no.
Not as bad as that.
But it's not as bad as that. But it is. So, does it impact on your life? Yeah, of course it does. But did I know that's what would happen? Yes, of course I did. And therefore, none of that came as a surprise. But I can't pretend it doesn't make a difference to the way we're able to just live our lives.
Here's a weird one. Do you still carry a wallet?
I have got a wallet.
Not trying to show us your ID.
I've got
After a fiver. Yeah.
I've got my wallet here, as it happens, and written on it, it says, "Take me home to Kentish Town."
Quite famous. That's an old wallet. That's an old wallet.
But I don't use it very often because nobody does anymore. It's all on your phone and all the rest of it.
And also you're Prime Minister.
Yes, there is that as well.
And also, have you had, I know your predecessors have sometimes talked about this, that if there's a big global crisis, there's a knock on your bedroom door at 3 o'clock in the morning and a civil servant comes in and wakes you up.
No, I haven't had that experience yet, although no doubt that will happen. Has been a lot of stuff on the international stage where there've been very early morning, very late night sessions because, amongst the things that have happened in the last 100 days, that's been very
It
intense.
felt like 100 years.
But the international scene has been very, very tense on a number of fronts, particularly the Middle East. And so that has occupied quite a lot of time. But I haven't had the knock, the coming through the door and the sort of waking me up in the middle of the night experience yet. I'm sure I will at some stage.
Let's talk about your first 100 days.
Not 100 years.
Are you happy with how it's gone?
When I look at what it was I wanted to achieve in the first 100 days and ask myself, have we done what I wanted us to do, what I planned for us to do? The answer to that is yes. So I knew we had to hit the ground running with clear sort of series of acts, of pieces of legislation that we needed to get on with, and we had planned for that well in advance. And so if I look at the economy and what we've done there, and look at the investment that is now coming in, if I look at the NHS, settling the disputes, getting the doctors back into theatre, making sure that we are now pressing on with a 10-year plan for the NHS. If I look at energy, GB Energy, we've set up, we've got rid of the onshore ban on wind. We've introduced the biggest shake-up of workers' rights in a generation. We've set out the National Wealth Fund. There are lots of the things that I wanted to do. I gave a great long list at conference. I won't run through all that with you, but it is worth reminding ourselves that we have brought about quite a lot of change already in the time that we had. And that is in accordance with the timetable that I set for myself. And therefore, am I happy that we've hit the milestones I wanted to hit? Yes. The other thing that I'm really pleased about is that I was firmly of the view that if we started taking tough decisions on the economy and being clear that we'd take those decisions and stabilise the economy, that will begin to trigger inward investment, which I think is vital to the growing of the economy. And over the last 3 or 4 weeks, you've seen big investment decisions, Amazon putting money in £8 billion. You've had Blackstone putting money in £10 billion, carbon capture £22 billion, £500,000 in Northern Ireland just the other day on buses, and then another 24 billion today, all of it leading into this investment summit. Now that, if you like, is proof to me that the steps we're taking to stabilise the economy are, and be clear about our strategy, are having an effect. And some of the investors today who put the money in made it clear it was because the government's direction of travel and clarity is what they want to see. So all of that, I mean, look, along the way, this was bumps and side winds, which, I prefer we hadn't bumped into and been pushed by. But
Such as?
Well, look, stuff on donation, staffing issues, that sort of thing. But
why do you think that's happened?
Well, just let me, because I do think it's really important to get the balance right. In terms of the things we achieved that we wanted to achieve, the things we started, the legislation we've passed, that is all going absolutely according to the schedule that I set out. The investment is absolutely crucial, and we're not talking enough about it, in my view, because this is investment that's going to be measured in jobs in places across the United Kingdom, good, secure jobs for the future. So in that sense, I'm pleased. We've had headwinds of, as I say, donation staff. I've had headwinds of the riots and disorder suddenly in the middle of the summer when I thought, right, I just need to get off for that week's holiday. We had terrible riots going on, and the situation internationally has been a sort of constant sort of pressure in terms of the decision-making that we've had to do.
Do you acknowledge there's been sort of self-inflicted political damage around donations, around staffing in Number 10, those headwinds that you talk about? I just look at some of the write-ups this weekend on your first 100 days. The Spectator, Starmer's first 100 days couldn't have gone worse. The Economist, a very wobbly start. The New Statesman, sort of left-leaning, sympathetic to Labour, 100 days that shook Labour. They're not all wrong, are they?
Well, they are focusing on those issues rather than, I don't know how many of them are referencing the stuff on investment. And
we'll come on to talk more about the investment summit, but I just wonder...
I'm not... Obviously, I was leader of the opposition before I did this job. There is always going to be choppy days, choppy moments. I've been through this before. you get these days and weeks when things are choppy. There's no getting around that. That is in the nature of government. You're under huge scrutiny. I don't think you'd meet any leader that said, could I wish some of that away? And they wouldn't say, yes, please, of course.
Has it taught you things about how your team is structured and how you make government work?
Look, I think some of it, there are some bits which are easily explicable. So you have a big change of government. That doesn't happen that often. I mean, the last 4 elections have produced a government which was a continuing version of the same. So there's that to take into account. There's the rather strange setup that you have within government, which takes a bit of getting used to, which is you've got a political team with you, which obviously I've been used to working with. Suddenly you go into an environment where they're then sitting alongside a civil service team. That takes a bit of getting used to. So there is, to some extent, there's those issues going on. But then there are other things that, could we have done differently? Well, probably yes. But I think the important thing is not to get knocked off course, and to sort of take it in your stride. I've had this, as I say, I had 4.5 years leading the Labour Party. You get these times where it feels like the side winds. I think the most important thing, and the way I've always dealt with it, is focus on what is it I'm really trying to achieve here, and keep my sort of, sight on that. And then we'll push through.
Understand what you're trying to, have you been clear enough in defining what the kind of Starmer governing project it actually amounts to, actually is?
Yes. We've set out the way we want to govern, mission-driven government. We've set out what the missions are, that's driving sense of purpose. And then we've reduced it to 3 very important things for me, which is driving up living standards, making sure people feel better off, making sure our NHS is back on its feet and fit for the future, and that we're rebuilding the country, particularly what we're doing on housing. And those priorities will shape what we're doing. They'll shape, the budget is coming in just a few weeks' time, and no, I'm not going to sort of reveal to you.
You're preempting our preempting.
No, but and I'm not, but it's going to be tough because there's been a really bad inheritance, and the inheritance, there's a £22 billion black hole that the last government left. We can't ignore that or pretend it isn't there. And that makes this budget.
Some raise an eyebrow, don't they, about that number, given your choice to spend quite a lot of money on paying public sector workers?
Well, I'm really glad you raised that. The last government set up the pay review bodies and said to the public sector, we're going to review your pay. These are the parameters. There'll be a number that comes back, a recommendation. We all know it'll be about £9 billion. And they allocated 0 pence to it. I don't think you can really say to an incoming government that says, well, some of these recommendations have come back, by the way, and were on the desks of government ministers. Got an incoming government that says, well, we'll honour the pay review body, but where's the money in the books that's been set aside for this? There isn't any. That is part of the black hole, but there are other parts of the black hole. There's the Darzi report we had commissioned into the NHS, which told us just how bad things are. And of course, I have been really pretty shocked by the state of our prisons. And that is an inheritance that is real, that we have to deal with. I am convinced that by running towards those problems and tackling them, we will make for a better future rather than painting over them. But as we go into the budget, it is really clear that our focus is, and Rachel and I have been working really closely on the budget. And of course, there's the numbers, which goes in which column, and all the other questions that we're getting. But the central focus of the budget is going to be on living standards, making people better off. It's going to be on the health service and making sure we're putting it back on its feet, and making sure that we're rebuilding Britain, we're getting the growth that we need in. Mm-hmm. And we made really important manifesto commitments on things like waiting lists. And so the focus of the budget will be on those things that we made promises on, and particularly, those aspects of the NHS promises that we made.
No, I love a numbered list, and you clearly do too, because during the election campaign, we had the 6 first steps, then the 5 missions, and now you've outlined 3 priorities. Is that a new set of 3 priorities?
No.
Kind of like the...
No.
I don't want to say like the Edstone from the old election.
No.
The things...
No. the 5 missions are the big driving missions of government. They are measured in sort of 5 or even 10-year projects, because if you're going to have the highest growth in the G7, the fastest growth in the G7, that's going to take time. You've got to put the stepping stones in place. If you're going to have clean power by 2030, that's going to take time. You've got to put the stepping stones in place. If you're going to have the NHS not just on its feet, but fit for the future, so we can look back as proudly in generations to come as to what this government did, as we do to the 1945 government. If you're going to make sure that every child can go as far as their talents will take them, that's going to take time. Make sure the environment is safe, communities are safe. They're big projects. So the 6 steps were not sort of separate to that.
Yeah.
They were an indication of, well, if you're going to achieve those big changes, those changes that will make a massive difference, what's the first thing that you need to get on with, which is why the example I gave is waiting lists. And then you have to make that tangible. People say, well, what does that mean for me? So that's why living standards, the NHS and rebuilding Britain. But they're all within the 5 missions, but they indicate what the first steps are. And what, I suppose, answering the question, what difference would it make to me that people across the country are entitled to ask us?
Well, can we talk about the investment summit then? So this is happening on Monday. So all these CEOs are going to jet in, and presumably they will use private jets, a lot of them. How do you convince these hard-headed business guys who make decisions on kind of 10-year horizons that are worth billions? How do you convince them to? How do you swing it?
Firstly, don't underestimate the significance that so many are coming. There are so many top-level investors coming because they want to be part of the conversation we're going to have on Monday. So it's a very significant event. I think what will convince them is that we have listened to what they've told us about economic stability. So I've had lots of discussions with investors over the last 2 or 3 years and asked the question, you have the money to invest, because I can see you're investing elsewhere in the world. Why are you not investing in the UK? And the answer, there were various versions of the answer came back, but it boiled down to a lack of confidence in the last government because it was chopping and changing. Prime ministers were changing frequently, ministers were changing frequently. There was no clarity of strategy and no sticking to the strategy. That's why I've been really clear. It's what drives me to mission-driven government, which is clarity of mission, clarity of strategy, and economic stability. So in the budget, we are taking difficult decisions. Winter fuel, for example, is a difficult decision. But we're doing it to provide the economic stability that we need and the clarity of mission. And that's why, yes, there'll be people coming in Sunday for Monday. I think the Heathrow airports had to sort of expand the VIP area, sheer number of people coming in for our summit. But if you look at the 5 or 6 bundles of investment that we've already secured in the lead up to the summit, what you see there, the common theme is investors who have confidence in this government to stabilise the economy, in this government to have a clear strategy. Today, I mean, a lot of investment into clean energy. And there's been 2 or 3 investments in clean energy, but expressly investors saying in terms, I don't expect you've gone through all the quotes that have been put out in the last few days, but in terms in those quotes, what you're seeing is it's because of the clarity of mission, it's because of the stability. And that's why, so in answer to the question, why do you think this time they're going to invest? It's because I've listened good and hard to what the reasons were for them not investing in the past. And we've set our sights on that mission-driven government.
And yet there's been a critique, hasn't there, that perhaps the language of the government has been too gloomy. And then on a specific today, there is a hint from the parent company of P&O Ferries that they might not come along to the investment summit after remarks by your Transport Secretary. That doesn't seem to be the open welcome for those who might be bringing money and jobs into the UK.
Well, I think we'll resolve that. But that shouldn't, I think if you look at the last 3 or 4 weeks, you've seen £40+ billion worth of investment.
On the specific, the Transport Secretary get that wrong.
So, I mean, but the proof of the pudding in terms of the strategy we've adopted is, are those big numbers coming in for investment? And the answer to that is yes. And I'm confident there'll be more coming out of the summit as well as those that have been coming into the
I
summit.
just want to push on the specific, because Louise Haigh, the Transport Secretary, had said P&A was a rogue operator and argued that consumers should boycott the company. Was she right to say that?
Well, look, that's not the view of the government, and that was an issue that, well, the issue that cropped up a number of years ago now, that I think across Parliament was a cause for real concern. And I think one of the things we've done is to change that so that it can't happen again. That matters, but what matters to me is keeping our focus on that inward investment, because it's the jobs of the future that matter, and jobs that are well paid, that are secure, that are skilled, and in different parts of the country. So what I'm tracking on the investment decisions that are coming in is where are the jobs that this is going to trigger. So the fact that quite a lot of it was triggered in the northwest, northeast, some of the announcements in recent days triggering investment and jobs in Scotland, that really matters to me as well, because it's that in the end is what's going to make people feel better off.
Why did you not invite Elon Musk? He's got billions to spend and invest all over the place.
Well, look, I think I'm not sure he wanted to be there, but look at the quality and the sheer number.
Well, you didn't invite him to give him the opportunity to.
I think Tesla are coming, but
Okay.
but not him.
Come to think of it, no, I was just so to interrupt, Adam. Come to think of it, because you mentioned Elon Musk. I'm thinking of one of Elon Musk's mates, who you saw the other week, Donald Trump. How was he?
It was a really good meeting. We had dinner together, and
Did he have a burger? Or steak? Doesn't he have steak?
he didn't
every
have steak
meal?
on that occasion. He had chicken, but look. He flew up from Florida, and we both wanted to ensure that we have a good relationship. That was the purpose of the dinner. And
Did he feel like a man you could do business with if he was to win?
look, of course, because it's up to the American people to choose who they want as their president. And it's up to me as Prime Minister to make sure I have a good relationship with whoever the president is. And the special relationship that we do have between our two countries sits above whoever the post holder is at any given time. And it's in my nature. I believe strongly in personal relations. I've invested quite a lot internationally in the first 100 days in international relationship building, precisely so that we can have more influence when it comes to conflict in places like the Middle East, precisely so that we can have more opportunities for investment when it matters globally. But that level of relationship matters to me, to get to know someone, understand what makes them tick, have the ability to, as necessary, pick up the phone to them to sort out issues or talk about issues. So it was a good dinner. And I'm really glad that we managed to do it.
Did he get any other world leaders on speakerphone? Because we hear that he likes to just phone up other people and go, "Hey, I've got Keir Starmer here."
No, I had heard of that. I was contemplating who it might be, but no, that didn't happen.
It's Liz Truss or Richard Sunak. Now, just before you go, I don't know if you're a big Instagram user, but yesterday I got followed by an account I hadn't heard of called Rating Starmer's Hair.
Yes.
Oh, you know about this?
Only because our kids
Set it up.
No, you can imagine. Look, one of the things that our children are completely skilled at is ribbing their dad mercilessly all of the time. It's brilliant. So the moment I walk in the door, they begin, and so they've used the account to rib me and many other.
Do you know what you got yesterday? You got 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, and Mark Rutte, the new NATO Secretary General, only got 8.
Oh, well, I'll text him when I finish this and relay the news.
Prime Minister, it's really good to see you. Just one last question on investment, and this is when I get really, really nerdy, and I want to just, because you accuse us of not reading all the press releases, I just want to show I've done my homework. If you look at government investment in the public sector, right, so you building stuff, if you look at the OBR reports, and the projections for the next few years, it shows that towards the end of this century, it goes down. Does that mean if you're serious about getting investment in, the government will play its part and that will start going up? And this is just me showing off, but I've done some homework.
No, look, the government does need to play its part. And I'm a big believer in the government playing its part in investment for the future. What we need to be is really smart about that investment. So the question for me is not just how much investment goes in, but what is that investment doing? And this is where I've spent a lot of time in the last few years with investors, with businesses, to people we want to partner with, to say, where is the government investment most effective? So a lot of investors will say, I'm prepared to put quite a lot of money into this particular project, but there's some difficult bits along the road. It may be skills, it may be the initial startup money that's needed, or somewhere along the journey, it's going to need something from the government. So yes, I believe in investment. I think it's really important. Yes, I believe in an active government. I think we should be up there with our sleeves rolled up, working with business. I don't think it's a question of just saying, here's a sort of pot of money, and if you count the amount of money in the pot, that'll tell you how serious we are. What are you doing with your money? How are you using it as a catalyst? And how is it going to unlock the private investment that we need? And that's the way I see it. And that's why we need to be really smart with investment. But we do need that investment.
Last question, because I'm conscious as we record it has just turned 6 o'clock on a Friday night, and you've talked before about trying to have a kind of sacrosanct.
That's not going as well as I'd like.
Into which I realised we have crept. Have you managed to, where possible, keep the window on Friday night or at any other time where you can? It's back to what I asked you at the beginning. Retain a semblance of normality and family time.
No, it's been very tough, the Friday nights are almost always eaten up now with work, and that's fine, that's understandable. But I do still carve out time where I can. It's really important for me to spend time with Vic and the kids, and therefore whatever time I can carve out, I will carve out. I think it's really important for me. I didn't have kids to sort of visit them when they're grown up and find out what they're really like. I had kids because I wanted to be with them, enjoy their company. They are my pride and joy. And therefore, I love spending time with them. They're very funny. And so I will always do that. And although the job does bear down quite intensely and finding that time is harder, there are bits I didn't expect, which, because of the nature of the living arrangements now, are really great. So when our children come back from school, about 4-ish, they pop down to my office in Downing Street, and if I'm around, I can see them for 5 or 10 minutes. That would never have happened before because they'd have gone back home in Kentish Town, I'd have been in Westminster or wherever. And so just little things like that where I see just more of them in that environment is that I hadn't really thought through, hadn't expected.
Did it end up being like a focus group? Like, I was in chemistry today and they were really complaining about this decision you did about this.
No,
you don't give you feedback.
The last thing they're going to talk about at school is anything that I'm doing. So, no, it's much. It's great and different. So, the most likely text I'm likely to get from my son is, "Can I borrow your football boots?" Okay. Nothing to do with work.
Okay, well,
or anything like that.
It's 6:09, so we're going to let you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Newscast from the BBC.